Star Wars fans, we are officially in the final week of Star Wars Zero Company's launch on October 27th, 2026, and after more than a year of trailers, developer interviews, gameplay reveals, and now hands-on previews, we finally have a pretty good idea of what this game actually is. And honestly, it's a little bit more ambitious than me and a lot of other people thought.
You've come to us because you have nowhere else to go.
I got eyes on Fathom.
My plague will show you the truth.
What a lot of people thought it was going to simply be Star Wars XCOM. Zero Company is combining turn-based tactical combat, character customization, squad relationships, RPG progression, a strategic campaign layer, permadeath, and a completely original Clone Wars story. There's a lot going on, and because the game is being developed by BitReactor, a studio founded by veterans of XCOM, the tactical foundation is extremely deliberate. So today, we're going through everything we know about Star Wars Zero Company: release date, release time, preload time, additions, character customization, the story, the timeline, the infinite coil, the characters, the den, the combat system, action points, advantage, overwatch, cover, flanking, high ground, bonds, injuries, permadeath, specializations. There's a lot going on in this game. This is the definitive everything you need to watch before playing Star Wars Zero Company. I'll also separate what is confirmed from what is still speculation, because there is one massive question surrounding this game. What happens when Order 66 arrives? We've seen a little bit in the new trailer that it looks like it might be in a kind of Empire era with you going through trying to fight these Venators. So let's jump in. Release date and time first. Let's get the easy stuff out of the way. Star Wars Zero Company releases on Thursday, August 27th, 2026. It's coming to PC, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S. The official EA listing gives a launch time at 3 p.m. UTC. So for me and everybody in Kansas City, that is going to be 10 a.m. Chicago, Dallas, Kansas City, and anywhere else in the central time. So that's worth knowing because this isn't a midnight launch. For Eastern time, that's going to be 11 a.m. Mountain time is 9 a.m. Pacific time is 8 a.m. And over in the UK with our editor, that's going to be 4 p.m. BST. EA has also officially published a 3 p.m. UTC launch time, so this isn't where we're guessing based on a Steam's countdown. The game is currently listed at $49.99 for the standard edition and $59.99 for the deluxe edition on Steam. So for the preload, as of recording on Friday, August 21st, you can preload the entire game everywhere. I have mine currently preloaded, so that's awesome. Get it done now. That way you can get some stuff preloaded and jump straight into the game when you can play it in your time. Very exciting. I'm going to try to actually stream this game, hopefully. We're hoping. So with that, how to get it, what is Zero Company? At its core, Zero Company is a single-player, turn-based tactical RPG. The game is developed by BitReactor in collaboration with Lucasfilm Games and EA with Respawn Entertainment. It's all together. So there's a lot of heavy hitters here. But there's also elements that should feel familiar to people who have played games like XCOM 2, Marvel's Midnight Suns, Mass Effect, Fire Emblem, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. So what everyone's really saying, and kind of what I'm looking at, is you're doing XCOM style combat with Mass Effect style kind of character building and narration and the story, which I absolutely love. Mass Effect is one of the team's favorite games. And then also you got your Star Wars elements. Respawn did the Jedi Knight games. Not the Jedi Knight games, the Fallen, the Cal Kestis games. They're awesome. The important distinction is that Zero Company is not just about winning individual battles. You're managing an actual organization. You're building a squad. You're developing characters. You're making decisions between missions, and you're deciding who you're going to trust with your life. As someone who started playing XCOM 2, again, I've never played XCOM in my life. I played Midnight Suns. I liked it. The story was kind of cool. I liked the kind of card combat of it all. Kind of the roguelite nature. Huge fan of roguelites. We will also be playing the Galactic Racer, which is a racing roguelite, by the way. Yeah, I think I've played 3 missions, and I have 2 characters from my original roster right now, and I think one's about to die. I'm about to have to replay everything because XCOM is hard. So hopefully this game is not as hard as XCOM because it's Star Wars. We want to be a little bit more story-driven. I mean, not easy by any means, but we want it to be not blow your computer up. So the story... The game takes place during the twilight of the Clone Wars. The Republic and the Separatists are still fighting, but the galaxy is entering the final phases of the Clone Wars. And rather than tell another story about the Jedi leading a massive army into the battlefield, Zero Company focuses on something happening underneath the conventional war. A shadow, kind of cold ops. You play as Hawks, a former Republic officer who has fallen outside the traditional military structure. Hawk becomes the leader of Zero Company, an unconventional group of professionals for hire. The company isn't made up exclusively of clones. That's one of the most important aspects of the game. Your team can contain an absolutely bizarre combination of Star Wars characters, clones, mercenaries, aliens, droids, a Mandalorian, a Jedi Padawan, an Umbarian, scoundrels, and custom characters you can create yourself. The official premise is that Hawks and Zero Company are recruited for a high-stakes operation involving an emerging threat that can consume the galaxy, and if it's not stopped, and eventually, we can learn exactly what that threat is. There's a lot going on. We're going to jump through some more later. This is kind of the initial overview. Again, we're going to hit the points, and again, we're letting you know everything you need to know. So the main bad guys, the Infinite Coil, the primary antagonist faction, is a separatist-aligned paramilitary cult led by Kundry Fathom. And this is where the story starts going kind of beyond Republic versus Separatists and all that. The Coil is attempting to spread a deadly shadow plague across the galaxy. At San Diego Comic-Con, the developers described the Infinite Coil as a separatist-aligned paramilitary cult intent on spreading the plague, and whatever. That gives Zero Company a very different flavor from a traditional Clone Wars campaign. The Separatists are still present. We see that in the gameplay. You're fighting B-1 battle droids, you're fighting droidicas, all that good stuff. So everyone is still fighting, but Zero Company is operating in the cracks between all of these superpowers. It's essentially a covert operation story happening inside the larger Clone Wars, which is awesome because as much as I love Jedi, I'm kind of tired of them. Andor is kind of proof that you can tell a Jedi story, not Jedi story, you can tell a Star Wars story without the Jedi. With the timeline, probably the most interesting part of the game, Zero Company takes place around 20 BBY, during the final portion of the Clone Wars. That puts it very close to the events leading into Revenge of the Sith, and that means something extremely important. Everyone playing this game already knows the Clone Wars are about to end. The Republic is going to become the Empire, the Jedi are going to be hunted, the clones are going to receive Order 66, Anakin Skywalker is going to fall. The question isn't whether these things are happening, it's like watching the Titanic, you know what's going to happen. The question is how close Zero Company gets to them. Are they going to be part of everything? You actually have a clone in your company. You can have multiple clones in your company. Will this affect the story at all? That's actually thinking about it, reading the script and going over it. That sounds like you might get like the clone trooper. I can't remember. We'll go over that in a second as well. Like might turn on everybody, might turn on the Padawan, and you have to like choose which one you go with. Who knows? So, there is no official confirmation that the player experiences Order 66 during the campaign, so this is all still speculation. The late war setting makes it obviously possible, but anything beyond that is currently speculation. So, if you see a thumbnail saying Order 66 confirmed in Zero Company, be careful because we don't know. This is, again, lots of leaks happening right now. We do know Anakin is in the game. We just know that. We've seen him. He is voiced by Matt Lantern, returning from the Clone Wars. And now we also know that Captain Rex also appears, which, I mean, you can't have one without the other in a Clone Wars era anything. We don't know if he's playable, but he's in the game. He's at least going to throw some dialogue around. Whew. Because this isn't just a generic new Star Wars storytelling with the Clone Wars aesthetic, developers are deliberately connecting Zero Company to the existing Clone Wars era. Who is Hawks? Hawks is our protagonist, but Hawks isn't a predefined Star Wars hero in the traditional sense. Hawks is designed around player customization. You can customize things like their species, appearance, clothing, voice, combat specialization, all those things. With the species, you can do a human, Torgruda, Twi'lek, Zabrak, Averonian, and a few others as well. So your Hawks is going to be different than anyone else's Hawks, which I think is kind of cool in a storytelling sense, because I know we all know that Disney, Lucasfilm, everybody, they're really big on continuity and things like that. So we're telling kind of like a story. I almost think of this as like new Legends, if you will. You know, you have that main character, that custom character, but everyone's going to tell it a little bit differently, which I think works within the canon context of what Zero Company wants to be. You know, you have that original story. Some characters can die, which is going to change your story, your playthrough from everybody else's, which is really cool. Again, in that kind of storytelling sense, to where, you know, we don't have one locked in character. We have a name, but everyone's going to, you know, remember it a little bit differently. So I think that's super cool. Hawks is not your commander sitting behind a desk, kind of like you are in XCOM 2. Hawk participates directly in all of the tactical missions, so you're customizing your protagonists and also building their combat identity. So we have authored and custom operators. So Zero Company has two major categories of squad members: authored operators and custom operators. Authored operators are the characters written specifically for the story. They have their own personalities, histories, relationships, and narrative arcs. Custom operators are recruited by you, and those characters can be customized in terms of name, appearance, species, clothing, voice, combat role, just like Hawks. But the distinction is very important because Zero Company isn't trying to turn every character into a blank avatar. Your authored characters remain them. So your custom recruits are where you get to build your own weird Star Wars mercenary and pop them in with the authored characters. Some of those are going to be, you know, Hawks, the former Republic officer and leader; Trick, or CT-3301, the clone trooper who has a history with Hawks going back to their Republic military service; Tel Ray, the Jedi Padawan; Cab Uppercut, a former prize fighter with a cybernetic arm, hence the uppercut; and then a few more like Runa Blast, Jay Mordant, Cly Cluveria, I can't say these names, Cly Cullervo, Bennick Halloran, Visser, and a few others. The SDCC cast announcement also confirmed major voice actors like Jonathan Freeman, Erica Luttrell, D. Bradley Baker, Matt Lanter, Vic Michaelis, and JB Blanc. Whew. And the characters aren't simply cosmetic skins; they have their own specialties and abilities. So finally, we are at the game. So you start everything in the den between missions. The den, between missions. Zero Company operates out of its base known as the Den. This is where the game transitions from a tactical combat into its strategic and RPG layer. You're managing your company, you're managing characters, decisions, preparing for missions, and you're developing your relationships. The Den is essentially the place where your squad becomes a squad. That matters because Zero Company isn't simply mission battle, mission battle, mission battle. There's an entire management layer connecting to those missions. And again, people can die. So with those, you have your bonds and relationships. One of the coolest systems of the game is the relationship system. Operators can develop bonds by fighting alongside each other, doing actions together, and probably more within the game that we haven't seen yet. So these are not just cosmetic characters developing strong work relationships. You can also unlock combat synergies. So you're not just building characters, you're building teams within your teams. That creates an interesting tactical question. Do you bring the 4 strongest individual characters, or do you bring 4 characters who have excellent chemistry that have these bonds? It's a very different design philosophy from simply looking at everyone's stats. With the basic combat system. Now, combat is turn-based and uses an action point system. Everyone gets 3 action points. You can move those around depending on specializations, actions, different abilities, and all that. Think a little bit of Baldur's Gate 3 from kind of looking at everything. It's pretty close to that. You know, you have your action point system. You can do them in any order. You have bonus actions, kind of super. It looks super in depth. So each operator generally gets 3 AP per turn, and you can spend those AP on different actions. That means you might move, attack, move again, or move, use an ability, attack, or attack, move to cover, use Overwatch. And the order matters. You aren't locked into a single action sequence, so you can do all of these. Just make sure you do it the right way. With action points, different weapons and abilities can cost different amounts of action points, Some attacks can consume significant portions of your turn. Utilities such as medkits and concussion grenades generally cost AP as well. That means every turn is essentially an optimization problem. Do you move? Do you shoot? Do you use an ability? Do you heal someone? Do you set up Overwatch? Or do you save your position and prepare for the enemy's turn? Again, you want to sit there, Overwatch, wait it out. So Overwatch, if you don't know, works the way as that you would think as in like XCOM or even honestly Warhammer. Yes, I've played a little bit of Warhammer. I'm not good at it, but I've got a Thousand Suns army. So you select a cone. If the enemy enters that area or performs an action inside of it, your operator can fire on them. And depending on the size of that cone and how far out it is, will determine kind of how accurate you are at hitting them. Overwatch can also interrupt enemies' movements. And the important part, using Overwatch ends the operator's turn. So Overwatch becomes a deliberate commitment. You aren't simply throwing it down because you have nothing else to do. You're deciding, am I going to spend my remaining turn preparing for what the enemy does next, or am I going to sit here and shoot things and throw grenades? Wait, it goes both ways. Again, you have cover in this battle system. There's partial cover and full cover. Nothing too new or ground-based breaking. Both reduce the chance of being hit, with full cover offering greater protection. And this is Star Wars, so cover isn't always permanent. Some environmental objects can be destroyed, which means the position that looks safe at the beginning of the turn might become completely exposed after the enemy starts firing. With flanking, you don't like your odds of hitting someone from behind cover. Flank them. Attacking from the side or rear can improve your chance to hit, and higher ground can also improve your odds. So the battlefield isn't simply about who's closer, it's about where am I standing? Where are they standing? How much cover do they have? Who has the high ground? Yes, there's literally a Star Wars tactical mechanic built in around having the high ground. You want that. Thank you, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Advantage. Then we have Zero Company's more interesting mechanics advantage. Advantage doesn't cost AP. That means it functions as a separate tactical resource you can use during combat. This is particularly important because it can let you perform additional tactical effects after you've already spent all of your AP. So you can think of AP as your immediate action economy, and advantage is another resource you can potentially turn a normal turn into a devastating one. So this is like your bonus actions. As you are hitting enemies, you build up your advantage, and you can use that mostly for your different characters' ultimate abilities and things like that. You can also call for backup. This doesn't cost AP each turn. One operator can call on another teammate to assist with an attack. The assisting operator contributes firepower to the attack. So suddenly, you can have multiple members of the squad coordinating around one single target. This is one of the places where the bond system starts becoming really interesting. You're not simply selecting character A shoots, you're building coordinated attacks between the characters, and by doing these things together, you are creating their bonds, so feeding into systems. We also have force powers. So Telray, we've seen the force push, but it's not, just push enemy away. You can use the force to manipulate enemy positioning. For example, you can knock an enemy out of cover, expose them to another squad member's Overwatch. That's where we start doing something even more clever. It takes your traditional tactical mechanics and gives them that Star Wars solution. We got space wizards throwing people into Overwatch. Jedi are Thousand Suns, aren't they? They're like corrupt. No, I guess that would be the Sith. Huh. Continuing. Combat synergies. This is probably the system I myself am most interested in. Operators who fight together can develop combat synergies, and those synergies unlock as characters learn to work together. So imagine, the Jedi moves an enemy, the Heavy destroys the cover, the Gunslinger hits multiple targets, the Sharpshooter finishes the most dangerous enemy. Then your bonded characters trigger an additional interaction. That's just kind of everything going on. You're building a squad, they're all working together, which it sounds super, super awesome. One tactical machine. With all of that, we have 8 specializations in the game. Most operators have access to all of them. There's a couple different ones, like your Jedi can only do the Jedi. No one else can be a Jedi. And your astromech droids, they have their own droid specialization as well. So each specialization contains a passive, a standard ability, and an ultimate. The confirmed archetypes include Assault, a frontline fighter specializing in medium to close range combat and maneuvering around cover. The Gunslinger focused on multi-target attacks and rapid offense. The Heavy, the tank of the group, heavy operators are designed to absorb punishments and survive in exposed positions. Other roles expand the roster into things like support, scouting, precision fire, and more. The important thing is that these aren't just cosmetic classes, they fundamentally change how the operator functions on the battlefield. And then the customization. I maybe should have done this part first. So this is where we kind of start getting into the part that I really like. Choosing Assault, you're building an individual, then you're building a squad. Hawks can be customized. Custom operators can be customized as well. You can change species, appearance, clothing, voice, loadout, abilities, combat specialization, and they've even shown that everyone can wear clone trooper armor. So eventually, you can get enough clone troopers, build an entire squad of clones, or an entire squad of astromechs, or an entire squad of whatever you really want, and they can wear what you want. The customization is super awesome. Custom colors for everything. You can create your own clone battalion, create your own color scheme, make it all seem super cohesive, or make it look like a ragtag group of whatever. I will probably try to play a Oops All Clone Troopers build, an Oops All Astromech Droids build, and if you have an idea for other builds that you want to see, drop it in the comments so that we can play it. So the clone armor itself isn't restricted exclusively to the clone characters. The custom operators can also have the access to everything that you've unlocked, and the clone helmets even provide voice modulation, so you kind of get that sweet clone sound as well. You can create a custom alien wearing clone trooper armor and have that helmet alter the voice. It's absurd. It's awesome. Let's do it. Eventually, you can do dual specialization and progression. As your operators progress, the game gives you more ways to specialize them. The broader progression system allows you to shape characters around your preferred playstyle rather than simply following one rigid class path. And because your squad can be customized so heavily, there's a huge amount of room for experimentation. The interesting part is that this isn't just about creating the most powerful individual, it's about creating the squad where everyone's abilities complement one another. I've said it a few times. We are building squads, not just individual characters. Throughout your journey, though, there will be injuries. So the galaxy is a very dangerous place. When an operator loses all their health, they become downed. They suffer one injury. A teammate can rally them back up and get them back into the fight, but the injury remains. And injuries negatively affect combat statistics. If you accumulate three injuries, the operator will permanently die on standard difficulty. So you can survive a mission, but still permanently, damage your entire squad, which I've found in XCOM, and it hurts. You spend all this time working on, a character, and then they permadeath. Yeah, there's permadeath. It's enabled by default, but players can turn it off if they want. This is important because it means the game isn't forcing everyone to play the hardcore XCOM experience. You can decide if you want to have permadeath on or off. I'm going to play with it enabled because that's the way that they intended it. Every character becomes expendable. This includes the other guys. This includes the scripted characters. So anything that happens will affect the story at large, which again, kind of going to the beginning, is everyone's going to have a little bit different depending on if all the characters make it through or not. So all of your scripted characters, they can die. The only one that can't die is Hawks. So then after that, we have the strategic campaign. So the tactical missions aren't the entire game. Between them, you're making strategic decisions. The recent previews have shown a larger campaign management system involving the den, missions, operators, intel, and other resources, and they are all time-sensitive situations. So the strategic layer creates another question. What do you do next? You may have multiple opportunities. You may not be able to address everything, and some situations can disappear if ignored. That means campaign management becomes part of the strategy rather than simply being a menu between battles, hitting all the things, maybe get to this later. It affects the kind of galaxy at large. If you don't do this, your enemies might become stronger. If you do this, maybe you do. And if you don't do this, maybe everything goes to hell. Who knows? We're going to find out. Galaxy Campaign takes Zero Company across multiple environments and worlds. We've seen locations including Vandor, Anaxis, Geonosis, and Ryloth. The developers are deliberately using the Clone Wars as a huge sandbox. You're not fighting one continuous battle, you're following an investigation across the galaxy. The game itself, they say, is between 30 and 40 hours for the main campaign, depending on difficulty and player experience with tactical games. So for me, it's probably going to be a little bit longer. Recent hands-on previews have reinforced that this isn't a tiny tactical experiment. Reviewers and creators have been able to play significant portions of the game before release. One preview reported spending more than 15 hours just kind of hanging out, doing the thing, playing over and over and over again. And the reception so far has been positive. I have not gotten to play it yet because I'm not that cool, but I'm going to play the snot out of it. There is no new game plus, however. So Zero Company does not have kind of that immediate replay value. So that's going to be from, doing different squads, compositions, different custom characters, different character survival methods, different relationships, different tactical choices, and difficulty settings, permadeath. So you're not going from campaign, reloading with it, going to the new campaign. You are making a whole new story every single time. There is currently no official mod support announcement. So it may disappoint you if you're from XCOM, because XCOM has a history just with huge mods, but this is something to watch after launch because, again, there's no modding framework at release. Getting down into it, we have the 2 editions, the standard and the deluxe. Every pre-order gets the crystalline Astromech cosmetic pack. That includes an R3 droid, the crystalline R4 head, the crystalline R5 head, and the BR1 droid. The Deluxe Edition adds additional Clone Wars-inspired cosmetics, including the Grand Army of the Republic. So you get the Republic officer uniform, which will probably be just for Hawks, the 100th Clone Trooper armor, and the ARC Trooper armor. You also get the Shadow Collective cosmetics, with tattoos from the Pike Syndicate, Hutt Cartel, Death Watch, Black Sun, and the Crimson Dawn. There are also 5 exclusive weapon appearances, so you get a good amount of skins for everything. There's also the Ultimate Pack, the Collector's Edition. You get a thermal detonator, I think a jewel case, and then some other things. $300, I don't think that's worth it, but even getting the Deluxe Edition is cheaper than most AAA games right now, so I don't think that that's a bad deal. And if you pre-order it, you get some really sweet droid customization. Now for a little bit of speculation with Order 66. So we know Zero Company takes place late in the Clone Wars, but we know it's around 20 BBY. We know Anakin's there, we know Catherine Rex appears, we know that clone troopers are important, and we know the story is set extremely close to the end of the Clone Wars. But Bit Reactor has not officially confirmed that the player will experience Order 66, so anything saying that is, again, still speculation. However, that would be awesome. Imagine spending 30 hours building relationships with clone troopers. Imagine, a clone who saved your Jedi's life like 20 times. Imagine investing in that relationship between the two of them, and then the Republic changes. Suddenly, your most trusted soldiers are potentially your greatest threat. What would fit with, the themes of loyalty, identity, military, obedience, survival? But again, I honestly think that that's going to happen. I think you're going to have to choose between the Jedi companion or the Clone Trooper companion. I honestly do. I think this is going to be like a pivotal point in Hawk's story. I'm hoping. It's just a theory. It's a game theory. So, what do we know from the final trailers? So the final marketing push has happened, and we know that Zero Company isn't trying to be a small side story disconnected from the Star Wars universe. We've seen all of these main characters, Mandalorians, battle droids, a whole new enemy with the Infinite Coil, wide variety of planets, environments, and the game appears to actually be embracing the Clone Wars era completely, something that we do not have enough of. And that makes sense. The Clone Wars is arguably the perfect Star Wars era for a squad-based tactical game. Dozens of factions, species, multiple militaries, mercenaries, we still have Jedi, we still have Sith, criminal organizations, droids, clones, and endless reasons for a 4-person squad to get sent somewhere dangerous. But what are people saying? So the previews are, the most important information we've gotten so far, because we're finally hearing from people that have actually played again. I haven't yet, but I will be. They've played substantial portions of the game. The broad consensus so far is that combat is accessible. The story is surprisingly strong. The tactical systems have more depth than the trailers initially suggested, and the game does a good job of making Star Wars abilities feeling meaningful inside a turn-based system. The game is also reportedly designed to be approachable for people who aren't already hardcore XCOM players. So if you've never played a tactical RPG before, this isn't necessarily designed to throw you into the deep end immediately. So I would also say, Baldur's Gate 3, Midnight Suns, those are more of the approachable side. Baldur's Gate 3, obviously strong story, so this is going to lean more towards that than XCOM. So, who is this game for? If you love Star Wars, obviously. If you love XCOM, this is probably already on your radar, and if you like Mass Effect, the character relationships and squad building elements may be especially appealing to you. And I like 2 of those 3 things, so I'm in a good spot myself. If you've never played a tactical game before, this might actually be one of the better entry points because the Star Wars abilities give you more intuitive understanding of what your characters can do. So my final verdict before release. After everything we've seen, here's what Star Wars Zero Company actually appears to be. It isn't just XCOM with lightsabers, it's a Clone Wars tactical RPG built around the idea of creating your own unconventional Star Wars Special Operations unit. You create your Hawks, you create your operators, you customize them, you develop relationships, you build combat synergies, you manage the den, you decide which missions to pursue, you fight through tactical battles, you deal with injuries, and if you leave permadeath enabled, you live with the consequences. And while hunting down Kundry Fathom and the Infinite Coil during the final stages of the Clone Wars, and the fact that this story takes place so close to the fall of the Republic adds an enormous amount of tension. Because we know what is coming. The Republic doesn't survive. The Jedi don't survive intact. The Clone Wars ends, the Empire rises, and somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, there is Zero Company. A group of people who were never supposed to be together in the first place, trying to survive a war that is about to become something much worse. Star Wars Zero Company launches August 27th, 2026 at 3 p.m. UTC, 10 a.m. Central Time. And if you're looking for a Star Wars game where your decisions actually matter, this could be one of the most interesting Star Wars games we've had in years. And if you want to stick around, I will be doing a full breakdown once the game launches, including the story, the timeline, maybe some of the best squad compositions, or at least my favorite character builds, and everything the game doesn't tell you up front. If you're playing at launch, may the Force be with you, because you're probably going to need it.